Hello and good evening, good morning, and in some places, good afternoon. Welcome to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends. And of course, I'm Mr. Boomstick XL. These are all of my friends. And my God, ladies and gentlemen, do we have a show for you today? Breaking news, folks. Early in the week, Microsoft offers a 10-year deal to Sony. And as of today, they have failed to respond. But that's not the only issue. We're going to get into the real deep weeds here, folks. Some information has come out, and folks, it appears that Sony, if you thought that Jim Lion Ryan or Dan Schmooze Ryan were putting out falsities left and right, wait till you hear some of the BS that has been put out there. It is incredible to me. I was asking Hargeet China, who's joining us again this week, whether or not you can in fact be prosecuted for lying or, obviously perjuring yourself during a situation like this. And yes, you can. Actually, in some instances, you can go to jail. Listen, folks, I'm very reserved. I like being fair. I like being level-headed. But I think I'm going to go off the chain today because I have just about had it with this nonsense. Out of all of gaming, we're talking a monster amount of publishers and developers. Sony is the only one that has an issue with this deal. And the more that we read into this, and we're going to get to John because John actually has a great point on this, it appears that there's nothing that can be good enough for Sony. There really is not going to be anything good enough for Sony. I think that everything that has been put out there by Sony can easily be debunked with someone with a third grade IQ. A third grader could step in and be like, "Oh no, that's actually wrong," and no, actually that's right. I don't understand personally, folks, how regulators could even take anything Sony is saying seriously. It is complete rubbish. It is bullshit from the top to the bottom. And I don't understand why it's even an issue. And it's funny because we're going to get into the document. And Hargeet, I want to welcome you in here. We were talking in the green room. Everything that Sony that complained about is literally doing right now to force people into their brand. It's bonkers. First of all, Hargeet, welcome, brother. How you feeling?
I'm good. It's Thanksgiving coming up tomorrow, so it's good times. In my vacation from the beginning of this week all the way through the beginning of January. I'll be going back on January 3rd, so I've got a good 6 weeks of video gaming. Started playing the campaign of Halo again with some friends who hadn't played it, so playing some co-op there. It's been fun. So yeah, it's good times.
Yeah, a lot of games. As folks, as you see, this is going to be the first 2 hours of the Evil West. I am quite enjoying this. It is everything I could have asked for. It has a very Bulletstorm, Gears of War-esque kind of a feel to it. I am quite enjoying it. Like I said, I mean, you just watch the gameplay. You'll decide whether or not you want to buy it. John Wolf, you obviously are going to be very spicy this evening. Welcome back, brother. How you feeling?
Hey, Boom. How you doing? How you doing, Hargy, Wandering Dutch, Mag? Always a pleasure to chop it over with you guys. Looking forward to tonight, Boom. Today I'm usually reserved when it comes to opinions and stuff like that because it's just the way I am in nature. But today I kind of went off the lid a little bit. And Jim Ryan is here visiting for Thanksgiving. You can see he's in the background here. I still haven't been able to get him to stop crying. But that's my goal, through the next couple of days. But I'm sorry, Jim, but you've given me no choice but to rebrand the PlayStation brand to the Cry Station for the rest of this generation. And It's through your actions. And I get it. I get why you're doing it. But you've given me no choice as a consumer to say, stop crying, dude.
Yeah, it's listen, I get it, folks. I've been talking to people in DMs. I've been talking on the phone pretty much all day about this. And obviously, we understand business, right? We may not be millionaires, right? We may not own big businesses, but common sense business conversation can be had, especially on the podcast level. And everything that Sony has done to remain the top selling console brand for 20 plus years everything that they're doing is what they're complaining about. And like I said, I don't think you have to be a regulator who knows the encyclopedia of gaming from front to back and back to front. I think logistically, you can just look at this thing on the surface level and see that everything that Sony does to take your money, to take our money out of our pockets, to make us be customers, is what they're claiming Microsoft could potentially do. And we know Microsoft is not going to do that. But let's continue with the introductions. Wandering Dutch, brother, how are you feeling? You have had some really big opinions on this. I can't wait to get into it. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, it's always strange comments with no basis put around the internet and articles that are made up with no basis. Just I know a guy who knows a guy who works for, okay. We'll get into that.
Yeah, a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy that may know someone else. It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. Pretty
Great
ridiculous.
Fun. But it's by large websites, and obviously they want clickbait titles. So if that's what they've got to do to make a living, then have fun. But it won't fool those who can read.
Yeah, it's unfortunate though, because one of the things that I pride myself, and I'm not a journalist, right? I'm not a journalist. I don't want to work for a paper. I work for Double Barrel Gaming. It's a self-made website. It's a self-made YouTube channel. The thing is this: integrity is at the key, is at the center. Everyone on this panel holds integrity to a very high standard. Okay, and just because I don't have a blue check mark doesn't mean that doesn't count. Okay, journalistic integrity. I get clicks. I get you got to pay the rent, you got to keep the lights on, all of that stuff. But there comes a point where you must take responsibility for the BS that you are putting out there. And I have seen some sites that have really fallen off a cliff for me personally. The one of the ones that jumped off the page tonight was Politico. They have almost 5 million followers, ladies and gentlemen, 4.8 to be exact. 4.8 million followers on Twitter, and I think they're following like 667 people, right? They get out there and they put an article suggesting that the FTC is getting ready to sue Microsoft over this, to block this deal. And when you read the article, it doesn't have anything to do with that at all. It's basically unprecedented how many sites are putting out, quote unquote, fake news. If you want the actual real news, I say you get out there and you speak and you watch someone like Hogue Law, who really does break it down. He was actually a guest with King David last Thursday, and he broke down so many great points. He did a video today. I actually didn't know he did a video. I would have watched it, but we're gonna get into what you have to say, Dutch. But Mag, how you feeling, brother?
Yes,
and
sir.
when are we gonna get some pony videos?
Oh boy, I've taken
the
a
world
nice
is waiting.
Oh, I've taken a nice long vacation from Pony Master 420 because you know what? It's been rather quiet because I got to say, people have actually been playing games and doing stuff. So there hasn't been much rhetoric. But my goodness, the last 3 or 4 days, wow, do I got some material brewing now. So I've got a bunch of things on the go. I got some more videos coming. So yes, Pony Master 420 is making a return. I dare not put it on Hive. God forbid they're going to ban me. So anyways,
oh my God.
But let me tell you something. Before you even get into this game, first of all, looks fantastic. All right, I'm watching this now, and this looks like a big AAA banger as far as I'm concerned. It looks
Dude, I got to
Combat
tell
looks
you, it gives off a very Gears of War.
Yes, it's got the same movement,
kind of a feel to it.
Well, even the movement of the characters, very Gears of War-ish, like sort of heavy, bulky, whatever. But anyway, it looks like great fun. This is something that I might have to pick up down the road. Right now, I'm very busy with a lot of games and, of course, work. In regards to what you guys were just talking about, I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to say one thing I put in the private chat, and I was going to say what people like to do these days is that they take half a sentence, and then they complete the sentence on their own, and then they pass it off as fact. Right. And then that's generally what people do. Right. And then, Dave Chappelle called it 5 years ago. He says, guys, we are entering the age of spin. And it is so bad now that people can literally take 3 words from someone and turn it into a fact. And not even those 3 words don't even have to be lined up together. They could be 3 words separated in a sentence, and they could still find a way to put it together and make it sound like you said something. right? And that's what this is all going down, because what's actually happening behind the scenes 100% is not reality. So anyways, we will get into that tonight. Let's get into the show. Guys, let's get into it. We got some great guests. Let's get that chat fired up, get some likes in there, and let's get going.
Well, I want to pull Article 29 from the document, the 4-page document, and this is what I find to be disturbing. This is obviously is the CMA, right? This is their points. Sony obviously applauded everything that they had to say, which I have some points we'll get into a little bit later. But this is what Article 29 says. Finally, Microsoft seeks to distract from its foreclosure strategy by suggesting that SIE engages in conduct which is reflective of its market power. Because SIE recently increased the price of PlayStation consoles, Microsoft Para 1.3c, second bullet, SIE strongly disputes this claim. SIE's decision to increase the recommended retail price of the PlayStation 5 is reflected of adverse currency trends, supply shortages, and global inflation. Microsoft, for its part, has recently hinted at upcoming price increases for Xbox consoles and Game Pass. Now, wait a second. When the F did Microsoft say that? I don't recall anyone from Microsoft saying that a price increase was coming. They said they weren't raising it for the holidays, and at some point things might have to be increased. They never suggested consoles. They never suggested game.
That was 2 words that Phil Spencer had said in the middle of an interview about 3 weeks ago, where he said that eventually, that could be like 5-6 years from now, for all we know. He said eventually there could be an increase in price in the Game Pass subscription. Because it's common sense. You know what I'm saying? Netflix has gone up how many times, right, in the last 5 years, right? So it's common sense that eventually it's going to go up as costs go up and blah, 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 blah. We all know that. But you see what Sony did there? They turned that around and they made it seem like, oh, you see what he said? You see what he said? This is what's happening. So they're doing exactly what the media is doing. They're spinning everything in a direction to make it seem like they said one thing, but clearly it's all just he say, she say. It's absolute nonsense. Sorry. Continue.
He specifically said some things. He didn't point if it was going to be towards consoles, games.
That's right.
I mean, the talk of the talk of the circle was that more than likely it was going to be the raise to $70 and Game Pass eventually getting that $1 to $2 increase that we're all seeing that it's, like Mag said, common sense.
Yeah. Well, listen, you know what? I want to open up because I haven't had a chance yet to talk to anyone here about the 10-year deal. Now, the 10-year deal, in my opinion, I said this on 2 other shows. I'm going to say it live for the nearly 230 people we have here, is the canary in the coal mine for me personally. I think that this was specifically done. I think that any regulator that has been watching this could not have guessed that Microsoft would offer up a 10-year deal. I think that specifically, and again, this is just my personal opinion, folks, I think ultimately Microsoft knew that they were never going to take Call of Duty away simply because of the monies that would be left on the table. I think that is a pure fact. There's no way, because Wandering Dutch, you've said this multiple times. There is no possible way that 100% of PlayStation players would leave for Call of Duty. It's literally impossible.
Yep.
So I want to get your opinion. Then I'll go to Hargeet, John, and of course the Mag after that. Wandering Dutch, this 10-year deal, what do you think this actually means? Is this, because I've heard a lot of different opinions. I heard it's Microsoft bending the knee to Sony. I've heard people say, you know what, they just want the deal done and they're willing to give anything. I've also heard that they were, this is putting Sony on blast in front of regulators. Where do you personally fall?
It's close to the latter. It's not so much putting them on blast, but it's essentially just saying, listen, Call of Duty isn't what we're going for here. Like it's one of them, but as we've mentioned before, like it would be a financial disaster really to remove it from any platform because it makes that much money across the board.
And they're going to add it to a platform in Switch via the cloud.
And we've seen just how much money Call of Duty can make even without microtransactions. I mean, it made $1 billion in the first week. without microtransactions. And now we've got Warzone going live. You can bet that's going to double or triple before year's end. With all those microtransactions included, and the new skins and the battle passes and all of that stuff going in there. It makes absolutely zero sense for them financially to take it off Sony PlayStation. And Sony know this, and that's the difference, which is why they're not saying anything now about the 10-year. It's because they know that it makes no sense, and they know that the rhetoric was ridiculous to suggest that Microsoft would remove it, because financially it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Just like they said that subscription services don't work, and then they've been proven wrong. And then Microsoft have come out and said, no, actually, the subscription service is profitable. So it obviously does work because it's profitable. And if it didn't work, Disney wouldn't be at hundreds of millions of subscribers.
Yep.
Netflix wouldn't be hundreds of millions of subscribers. Like, subscription services obviously work, and all you've got to do is manage those services correctly. The 10-year deal itself is kind of just showing, in my opinion, it's more showing a position of faith to the platforms and saying, listen, if you don't think we're going to keep it there's 10 years, which is an unprecedented time scale in contracts, to be honest. I've not known anybody agree lengthy deals like that. Usually maybe 5, 6, 7 at a push, never at a decade. That's a lot of time, especially in technology. Like, if you have a look at the distance technology's traveled in 2 decades, we're talking from Sega Mega Drive, original Game Boy, all the way through to the Series X. Like, the distance technology has traveled in 2 decades. Even if you have a look back a decade, we're talking like tail end of the 360 era to the Series X. Like, that's a long time in technology. So to commit a decade in technology to a game platform, it is unprecedented. They're never going to get, and what they essentially want, which they're never going to get because it's never happened in any sector, is a lifetime contract in perpetuity. It's never going to happen. Like, that would, in Microsoft, would be absolutely insane to offer such a contract. Oh yeah, we'll offer it for a lifetime. It's ridiculous. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the business strategies are going to be. You don't know whether or not Call of Duty is going to be popular anymore in a lifetime.
It's not even that. It's at some point, Call of Duty could fall back to a 3-year cycle.
But it's not just that. Like, Call of Duty at some point could end. Like, it is popular now, but there is not to say that this game could not have an end point, because at some point in time, people will just not play Call of Duty. I know it sounds insane now, but you have a look at some of the most popular titles throughout the years that have garnered hundreds of millions of players. Like, people probably wouldn't believe this, but the most popular title in history of gaming is Tetris. How many of you play Tetris?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, furthermore, to think that COD in and of itself is an invaluable input for the industry. First of all, that's a lie on its face, because we have several examples of platforms surviving without it.
Yep.
That being said, Fortnite didn't exist a decade ago.
Yep.
Neither did Apex. Neither did PUBG. Or any of the Riot games, right? That are so big on mobile, right? Mobile wasn't even what it was a decade ago, right?
Nope.
So anything can come up to compete. To say that COD is so invaluable to everyone in the industry in the face of not having it is to really say we just don't want to try.
Yep.
Right, and we should be protected for not trying.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry,
we're the market leader. You should do what we say.
But we've
been market leader for 20 years. What are you guys doing? You don't want us to be first place for another 20? It's ridiculous.
We've mentioned this on countless occasions, though, Boom. Like, the IPs that Sony hold in their hands from their own first-person shooters that they are doing nothing with,
correct,
and refuse to do anything with, They've even got one of the best first-person shooter developers in the world as a first-party studio now.
According to Jim, they're garbage though. They couldn't do it, and they don't have the expertise.
They can't. Yeah, they can't compete. They can't compete with Call of Duty. No studio.
No first party studio could do that.
That's what Jim says.
I don't know. God of War Ragnarok is about to hit 6 million copies. What do you mean you can't compete? I don't understand.
Jim. Hold on. What's that, Jim? Oh, okay. Yeah, he confirmed they can't compete.
They can't
compete. I mean, he's right here.
I know the one thing they can't compete with though is Pokemon. I mean, let's face it, we're never going to compete
10
with
million,
that.
3 days. So no, but Dutch,
yeah.
do you or does anybody else on the panel? Does it tickle anyone that in the face of both God of War selling 5 million in the first week, although it was included in a bunch of consoles, but that's neither here nor there when they had a big console drop. But we can ignore that for now. And Pokemon in 3 days doing 10 million.
Yeah.
Both of which in the UK sold more than COD. That we're even having a discussion about how people can't compete without COD.
I agree. I agree.
There's the thing is the COD is huge. Don't obviously everybody knows that COD is huge in the first person shooter space. But I know equal amounts of people that play Rainbow Six Siege religiously, still love that. Yeah. That play what's
Apex.
that horrid shooter on PC that everyone seems to love.
What the hell's it called?
I've got the name. Everyone knows what it is. It's the competitive.
Yeah, Counter-Strike. There it is.
Don't disrespect Counter-Strike, man.
It was great in 2001.
Yeah. But look at it. That's an absolute juggernaut in the shooter space. Like it's massive, especially for competitive shooters. It's still huge. We're talking hundreds of millions of players worldwide. Like they're saying that you can't compete with something would be ludicrous. Like those games make money, but not only do they make money, they have hundreds of millions of players. That is in Call of Duty space. Yes, CS:GO is strictly PC, but like it is still a competitive space. First-person shooter across the board. No matter what you say, you can do it. Of course, you can do it. You just got to put in the effort to do that and create something that people want to play. Now they're capable. We are fully aware that Sony,
you can always just not do that, Dutch.
Yeah,
and Dutch, another thing, a counterpoint that Microsoft can use in their favor is just look at EA. Why do they keep on releasing Battlefield? Because they want to compete against Call of Duty.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. But in EA have said themselves, we see this as a positive because it means that we'll probably get more eyes on us. Even if it goes exclusive, it means that we can compete. Because at the moment, we cannot compete with Call of Duty because of these massive exclusivity agreements with Sony, etc. And what that means to them is if that exclusivity agreement in terms of the advertisement right goes away, then are we going to get Sony the free space that Sony now have for a first-person shooter on the console? Are we going to get that advertisement right with Sony?
That almost sounds like competition.
Yeah, that sounds like regular competition to me. I absolutely agree.
Exactly.
Listen,
and that's developers wanting that, and we know from every other first-party game that Sony release is that they absolutely know how to make quality games. So to say that they are incapable of making a first-party quality first-person shooter is completely against.
They have one already. It's called Destiny.
Have the capability of doing. We know their capabilities. All we have to do is show their swaths of Game of the Years.
It's not an M-rated. It's not an M-rated shooter, Hargi. That's what they say that they're not going to have.
Oh, whatever.
When they have Guerrilla Games in their back pocket that made Killzone an M-rated shooter. When they have Insomniac that worked on an M-rated shooter, dude, this is comical.
Yeah, it is
hilarious.
I have so many points. First of all, I want to do a quick shout out. Now this is a community member that, in my opinion, has exploded on the scene. Not only because he's a genuine person. He's obviously a good friend of mine. He's ex-military. He served his country with dignity and honor. But today, is Justin Sayen's birthday. I want to say a big, giant happy birthday. I would ask everybody in the chat, he's in here right now, give that man his flowers. Happy birthday, Justin Sayen. Obviously, he has now joined the Xbox Factor podcast each and every week. He was doing some really cool things behind the scenes. I mean, the guy is putting his mind into this whole thing. So a big shout out to Justin Sayen. Happy birthday, brother. Thank you for joining the Xbox Factor podcast. We hope you had a great day. There's another shout out that I want to give before we hand over the mic to Hargeet Chani. Anchorman V2 on Twitter has exploded on the scene with so many points. And Anchorman, I don't know if you listen to this show, but anyone that knows that dude, and I know Cog does, know him very well, you're getting your flowers, brother, live on the air, because he put out a thread that just dominated the conversation. One of the things that I want to go to you first on, Hargeet, regarding, I mean, we'll talk about the 10-year deal. We'll get your opinion on it. But he says, according to Sony says Microsoft making Call of Duty exclusive would force people to have to buy an Xbox. What? Really? Because according to him...
Oh, no.
Horror.
Oh, my God.
Jim,
you
is
have
that
to
true,
buy an
Jim?
Xbox. This is ridiculous.
Jim,
Right?
is that right?
Wait.
Oh, shit.
This is, he says, Anchorman says, which this is hilarious because that's how exclusives works. If I want to play God of War, I have to spend $480 for an equivalent PlayStation 5. Like, this is what fires me up, because this is just straight up lying. Like,
but it's like Sony and Jim Ryan or whoever it is has just realized how the industry works.
Shocking, because they've only been doing it for 20 years. But Hargeet, let's get your point on that. According to one of the complaints, Microsoft is going to quote unquote force people to buy an Xbox, which they, according to the actual write up, is $480. I know that I saw in some places you can get a Series S for $200. So I don't know what mathematics they're using. But it seems like false.
Boom! I'm gonna let you know a little secret. They made it up.
I would imagine so.
It's fiction.
Archie, what do you have to say so far of what you read today? Because you said you didn't read through everything. I mean,
I haven't been able to read through all of it. I've gotten little snippets here and there. But as far as that specific piece, Sony, when you entered the market, what did you do? Didn't you go around and get everybody else's games, take them away from all their platforms, make it so they didn't get those games and you did, so that people would buy your PlayStation? Oh, turnaround. Oh, so somebody else can't do that, but you can, huh? Really?
They also ran
Xboxes. Oh, the horror!
They also ran two companies out of the console business entirely.
Two?
I mean, two that, you. They ran two right out of the business entirely.
What was that, sorry?
I said, how dare you use our own strategy against us?
Literally, right? I'm like reading through the little snippets. And you do that.
Hargeet, I don't think you need to go back 20 years, though. Like, you can go back 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can go and look at ads for the exclusive things that you get on
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, right?
Yeah.
Or you could look at Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
Or you could look at any number of oters things that they've done, like
Legacy, exclusive content. Spider-Man for Marvel Avengers only available on PS. Come on,
Hargeet. I gave you this example, but I'm gonna change it up a bit in the green room. Can you imagine in the middle of an NBA game, a team shooting a 3-pointer and the other team going back and shooting a 3 and looking at the ref and saying they can't do that? They can't shoot threes.
Ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, the whole thing is crazy. Like, so the 10-year deal, I guess, as far as what they're doing, and I think I told you this, before we started, I don't think Sony's going to take any deal because they want the regulators to put some stipulations on this. And so that's what they're looking for. And if they take anything from Microsoft, it'll be basically approval of the acquisition, right? And so they're trying to just play their game here politically. So that's what I think about the 10-year deal. I mean, it's if it was made public by Microsoft, it's definitely them saying, okay, well, we gave it the best shot possible. if they just don't want to play ball, that's on Sony. But they're not even doing that. So I think this is just like, Microsoft's just trying to play nice and do what they can. But
they're not playing
as I was saying, I think you had somebody on your podcast say, he was a UK attorney, right, that deals with the CMA. He's like, to even do that up front is kind of cheeky. And he's right. Essentially, Microsoft trying to make this deal behind the scenes, it's forcing Sony's hand to not go to the regulators, because they would basically say, well, Sony agreed to this, there you go, right? And so I don't want to hear anything from Sony anymore, right? So we'll see where that goes. So I don't think anything Microsoft gives them is going to be good enough unless it's at the regulator table that this is what you will have to agree to. I still find the whole bloody thing just weird. When Lucas was sold to Disney, was there a stipulation that Netflix must be able to stream Star Wars? I just don't get where this is coming from. Like the entire thing just blows my mind. It's a freaking video game.
Yeah,
what was that?
I was going to say the thing is about the offer as well is it is a two-pronged sword. If Sony deny the existence of the 10-year deal, then and Microsoft produce proof to show they have offered a 10-year deal, then they're lying. They say, no, we never got offered that. Well, you did. Here's the proof. Likewise, if they deny or say no to a 10-year deal, the regulators can say, well, that's obscene. Like, that's a 10-year deal. Like, you're just worried about the game leaving the console. You've got guaranteed a decade of that game on the console.
And that's not what they're looking for, though. It's not just having the game on the console. They want marketing rights. They want the equivalent game to make sure it looks the same, parity from not having more features or better performance on Xbox.
I think
all these other
are
intangibles.
Game
Pass.
I think we're missing the forest for the trees. What they want is to get the deal blocked. That's what they want. They don't want anything. It doesn't. You could say, here's COD for 30 years. Here's COD till the end. Here's a contract in perpetuity for COD. They don't want Microsoft controlling that, and that's what this is all about. But to your point earlier, right? Not when AT&T acquired Time Warner, not when Disney acquired Fox, not when Microsoft acquired ZeniMax, not when Sony acquired Bungie, not when Discovery acquired Warner Brothers. Never once in any entertainment deal was there any requirement for the purchaser to provide their rivals with content that they were paying for. And I don't know,
it's mind-boggling.
Not even with MGM versus Amazon, right? Or MGM buying Amazon. But I don't think it's going to happen, right? These are arguments that are being made because Sony smells blood in the water. And in terms of the FTC suing, we'll see about that. But I don't know that there's going to be anything that is going to force them to put, there's no precedent for it, right? In the history of anything. And I challenge anyone in the panel or the chat to show me where a content provider acquired content that they now own under whatever copyright and trademark laws we have, where they were forced to release it on whatever platforms that they
Everborn, is Daredevil on Netflix anymore, or was that pulled?
Disney shut that down day one, right? So again, and Disney having Fox is much more of a monopoly. And I know it was a different regime, and we live in different times, and Lena Khan really doesn't like big tech. However, right? And I know it's not just about Lena Khan, but we're talking about the FTC. The thing is, there are still laws on the books. There's still rubrics that they have to go by, where you have to say you have to meet this threshold to be considered worth a market change, right? Like it has to be something like 30-40%. And can we say that Microsoft mixed with Activision will make up this much of the game publishing market with all the publishers that are out there?
Nope.
You can't. You cannot make that argument.
You can't even suggest it, even if you forecast it 10 years into the future. There's no evidence. that could suggest such a thing.
And so I still think all of it is much to do about nothing.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to explain later when you get to me because I want to hear what Mag has to say. I got took notes. I read the whole 20 pages. I listened to Hoag's 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, I wanted to get through all of his as well.
Yeah, again, he's been on top of this. This is one of the sub quotes in this 20-something page document. I said 4 pages. It's actually much longer than that. Competition would be harmed, folks. PlayStation and Xbox incentivize to invest in innovation and quality improvements depending on the number of customers that competition can attract. Listen to this, Hargeet. I'm going to let you run crazy with this. Microsoft's quote-unquote foreclosure strategy will lock many consumers to Xbox, including existing Xbox users who play Call of Duty and those switching from PlayStation to play Call of Duty. These locked-in users would become less likely to switch in response to any pro-competitive actions on
pro-competitive. No, stop right there, Boom. Stop. You said pro-competitive on Sony's part?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pro-competitive.
Pro-competitive actions on SIE's part. But wait, it gets better. This would effectively prevent SIE from competing for the business of a large portion of console gamers, reducing its incentives to invest. In this way, as the decision founded, Microsoft's strategy would materially affect Sony's ability to compete.
And in other news, Final Fantasy 16 exclusive to the PlayStation.
How about Final Fantasy 14? One of the biggest money makers on PlayStation right now and PC is not where? On Xbox. But Hargeet, please, this is another ridiculousness. I want
is that true? Is that true, Jim? Oh, it is. Okay. That's what I'm just checking with Jim.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing reads like exactly the formula of PlayStation, right? I'm like, this is what you have done and are continuing to do in the market, PlayStation.
That's how they were able to write it so well.
Right? And I'm like, okay, so you looked at your own history and said, this is what we did. And oh, wait, they might be able to do the same thing. No. We need to get governments involved. Our monopoly must be kept in place. Like, what do you do? This is just the most insane, stupid thing. Like, literally everything that they said that Microsoft could do, they're doing exactly that. They increased the price of their console. They increased the price of their games. They increased the price of their freaking subscription. Well, they added more stuff to it, but it's still not day and day.
But Hargeet, that was different. But that was different.
But that's different. They actually decreased the quality of their games, whether you want to accept that or not. Their games started coming out buggy. That's happening now.
Listen,
what is going on?
Hargeet, that has happened with 2 of their major releases to start 2022.
It used to never happen. They were perfect. Like, okay, whatever. So they've done literally everything they've listed there, and they're thinking Microsoft's going to do that. And I'm like, okay, foreclosure strategy, Sony. Did you foreclose Nintendo? Did you foreclose Sega? Did you foreclose everybody else that existed at the time? Yes, you did. Yes. You did do that. And you did it exactly the way you're talking about.
I'm like, come on.
You got to be kidding me. So now I'm thinking, okay, look, if Sony, you're admitting that that's anti-competitive, well, guess what? There are whole regulatory agencies all around the world that like to hear those words, anti-competitive. You say what? Anti-competitive? Oh, and you do this, Sony. Oh, so maybe all the regulators need to be looking at you, Sony, for all your anti-competitive practices, and perhaps you need to be regulated. Just saying, since you're the ones putting it out there, and you're the ones telling us Nintendo doesn't compete with you. Okay.
I have a Nintendo quote here that is going to blow your mind. But Hargeet, we're going to come back to you because I want to go to John next on this. And again, folks, I'm reading verbatim from the document that was released today. Check this out, John. Independent developers will be harmed, according to Sony. And it says this: independent developers today have 2 principal options. PlayStation, PlayStation Plus, Xbox, Xbox Game Pass.
And the lie detector says that was a lie.
Of course.
Isn't the Switch the #1 indie platform?
Yes.
#1. They have something called Nindies.
Followed by Steam.
Yeah,
or Steam is the #1, and then
exactly.
Switch.
Then it's Switch. But check this out, folks. This is where it gets banana cakes. By making Call of Duty exclusive to Xbox and Game Pass, the transaction would tip demand from multi-game subscription services towards Xbox and Xbox Game Pass. As Microsoft foreclosed PlayStation and PlayStation Plus, it would likely become a critical distribution channel for independent developers. In that weakened negotiation position, independent developers would likely receive worse terms for their content from Microsoft, or even be required to promise exclusivity in return for distribution, thereby diminishing independent developers' ability and incentivize them to invest in high-quality new games. This would also harm consumers even further.
3 words here.
Holy shit.
Kenna Sifu Stray.
Just saying.
Boom. Look, man, the conclusion of Sony's 22 Word document says it best. Okay. Their conclusion is in agreement, and I'm on 100% agreement with Everborn. I watched the whole Law video as well. I read through most of this document, but it all comes down to the conclusion, okay? And the last sentence of their conclusion. The only way to preserve robust competition and protect consumers and independent developers is to ensure that Activision remains independently owned and controlled. Jim, buddy, what's going on here, Jim? Okay, now, boom, I told you this in the green room, and I'm going to repeat what my feelings towards this. This is the final nail in the coffin for Sony. They've shown their true colors with this 22-page document, and if any government agency does not see through this bullshit, because that's what it is, it's a failure to the system completely. Okay, because the level of hypocrisy that Sony has put on paper compared to their actions is comical at best, when normal, simple-minded folks like ourselves can see through the BS. So we're fully expecting the experts that are supposed to regulate and call people for their BS, okay, to say enough is enough, guys. Okay, we see what you're doing here. We are letting you guys. We're entertaining you, but enough is enough already. Okay, so in saying that, right, boom. There's only one word that I have for this whole thing, and it's called pathetic. Jim, I'm sorry, I don't want to make you cry more. I know you've been shedding tears since the beginning of the show. That's not my intention, Jim. Hang in there. Everything's gonna be fine. But honestly, for them to say that independent developers are going to be hurt by this because Microsoft has decided or will decide to put Call of Duty on Game Pass, have they been paying attention? Even with Microsoft releasing their first-party AAA titles on Game Pass, they have given life to independent developers and independent games. Okay, independent developers themselves have come out and have bragged about how much more exposure they were able to get because of Game Pass in light of Microsoft releasing Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite, okay, which is supposed to completely wipe out all of those independent developers and games and push them to the side. No, Sony, again, you're BSing people. Why don't you say the truth and say how you, in your own marketplace, make it hard for these developers and small independent studios for their content to be found? Okay, why don't you guys come out and say the truth? Oh, that's right, because this whole thing is a farce. And the way that Jim Ryan and company have decided to go with is completely diminish any truth and make these what if scenarios. And I'm sorry, Boom, it's 100% BS and it's pathetic at best.
Hey, John, it's even worse than that, right? Because we can look at any indie developer who has signed a deal with Microsoft, and Microsoft does not restrict them. They'll say you can be in Game Pass, give us 3 months, and then you can put your game wherever you want and make the money that you can from the box sales. Whereas on the flip side, if you sign a deal with the proverbial devil in this sense,
you're done. You're done.
Right? You cannot, you are literally barred from putting your game in Game Pass for an extra revenue source. And you are also not even allowed to speak for at least a year and sometimes 2, but it's really an indeterminate amount of time for you to even put your game somewhere else. So exactly what they said is exactly what they are doing to independent developers.
Right now.
And remember 25K?
Today.
25K to market your game. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was last year, 25K.
Yep. So boom, to answer the question, again, it's another statement that Sony has put in this 22-page document that is completely it's like if they put the mirror in front of themselves and they said, hey, we're going to tell you what our game plan is for this game that's coming up. And hopefully the CMA is dumb enough to buy all this stuff.
I look, folks.
If Microsoft moved exactly like we do, it would be horrible for the industry and gamers and developers.
Yeah, it's
that's
crazy.
what we're saying.
Mag, I want to bring you into the conversation. Before I do, though, I do have to catch up on Super Chats. There's been a ton of them. Game Down Sights, I love that name. He drops a very generous, and the first Super Chat of the day of $5. He says they even said Microsoft wants them to be like Nintendo, but Microsoft said they will put Call of Duty there as well. Bad arguments all around by Sony and the CMA. Correct.
They should be so lucky to be like Nintendo. 30 million sellers, everything they do, they would love that.
Yeah, of course they would. They absolutely would love that. Yeah, so
it's
they
an
have
insult.
Nintendo has the best one-to-one console sale, software sale than anybody in the industry. Joe Dunmore drops a very generous $5 super chat. You can't buy Call of Duty for $70 billion. Wait until the authorities hear about this. Jim, Karen, Ryan. I love it.
Oh, wow. Sorry, Jim.
The Sith Lord, good friend of the program, drops a $5 super chat and says, "Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for entertaining us while my mom and I prep for tomorrow." Well, thank you for being here, brother, and we hope that you have an amazing Thanksgiving as well. Highlander 001 drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Evening Boom. When Microsoft takes these government agencies to court, it will be bigger than Apple versus Epic. It will air all out Sony's dirty laundry." I hope it doesn't go to that, but if they try to make them put it into PlayStation Plus, I can see them suing them for it. Pony Detector, welcome to the program. I know your meter must be going off like crazy. He drops a $5 super chat and says, "It's 2024. Ponies are playing Spider-Man 2 and swinging across Xbox Game Pass billboards. What will they do? A, sign up to Game Pass. B, cut their PlayStation 5. That's good stuff. And Carl Andrews Jr. Carl, welcome to the program, brother. He drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, "I'll be glad when this is over and worked out." Indeed. But listen, Mag, I got to read what Anchorman had put out there. Now, this is, folks, I'm telling you, I'm gonna read verbatim, so you know I'm not bullshitting you at all. Anchorman V2 says Sony argues that Microsoft's current strategy is to make Sony compete in the family-friendly market where Nintendo is king, and as acquiring Call of Duty would make the dominant in mature titles a part of Xbox only. Listen to this. They
just released God of War.
Yeah, this is well, they even have it's God of War is so adult. God of War is so adult that PETA is chasing after them for the animal cruelty on display, which is bonkers. But this is I don't know what page it's from, but it's from Article 14 of this document, and it says this: Microsoft claims that Nintendo's differentiated model demonstrates that PlayStation does not need Call of Duty to compete effectively. Microsoft Para 3.24. But this reveals Microsoft's true strategy. Microsoft wants PlayStation to become like Nintendo, so that they would be, so it would be a less close and less effective competitor to Xbox. Folks, this is coming from the document from the CMA. Post-transaction, Xbox would become the one-stop shop for all the best-selling shooter franchises on console: Call of Duty, Halo, Gears of War, Doom, Overwatch. As the decision explains, decision para 151 F, it would then be
that part is actually
serious
true.
Competitive pressure.
But I mean, Sony's the king of the third person over the shoulder sad dad. Right? They own that market, so
they about to sell 6 million copies of God of War. So I don't know what they're talking about, but okay. So Mag, you've heard what I just said about how how they're trying to make Sony become Nintendo, which is preposterous at best. You've heard the other comments. You've heard the other panel members. I mean, what? I mean, from a common sense point of view. How does anyone take this serious? Like, how could you logistically take anything they are saying serious when the market leader, the dominant market leader who uses bully-like tactics to force people into speaking nice about their games and their console, otherwise they'll be blacklisted. This is a proven fact, folks, on top of literally doing everything that's considered anti-consumer in every other industry, raising prices, making you pay for things you already own, charging developers and publishers a cross-play tax. They do this because they have no fear of repercussions. What are your thoughts?
First and foremost, I'll tell you one thing. John Wolf was saying at the beginning of the show, he said, usually he's pretty reserved. Well, guess who's not reserved? This guy. So I'm going to tell you right now, there's one thing I'll tell you. The thing is, with Sony, what they've been doing is that they're running a monopoly without owning it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Okay? And this is something that they've been doing for 20 plus years, 30 plus years, excuse me. And what they've basically been doing, like I said, I'll repeat it for anybody who didn't hear me screaming the first time. They run a monopoly without owning it. And this is their strategy. And what they do not like is that anybody's putting any kink in their armor, okay? And then, or putting up any pylons while they're trying to run the race, okay? And the problem is they're not liking the fact that they're going to have to put in the work now.
Yeah.
They're not just going to have to sit on their fat asses and just go, well, let's put it out. Let the developers slay. I'm not saying anything about the developers, by the way. I'm talking about Sony themselves, not the developers. The developers that work on those games do magnificent jobs, okay? Because like I said before, and I'll say it a million times, you can call me whatever the hell you want to call me, but in my personal opinion, Sony's first-party games are the best games on the market. Period.
But you're not wrong in saying so.
I'm not.
Listen, dude. I want this to be clear. What Mag is saying. So you cannot argue the work that goes into Sony making these games, folks. No. They make high quality movie-esque type experiences. Now, granted, that may not be your bag, and if it's not, I understand that. It's my bag, and it's what I like. I'm a selfish gamer. I like sitting in front of a TV on my comfortable couch with my headphones and getting invested in a character or characters or story. And that's what Sony offers. So please continue.
So I'm just saying that what I was getting at basically is, love PlayStation, hate Sony. It's my old mantra, right? But it gets glad it's coming back. And there's something else you mentioned earlier that, my God, how do the Bungie guys feel when Sony says Xbox has become the one-stop shop for the first person shooter, and Bungie's going, yo, what about us? You just bought us, you pricks.
For $3.6 billion, by the way.
Almost $4 billion, and now you're saying that Xbox is the one-stop shop for first-person shooters on the market? And I'm like, what did you buy us for? As the trophy wife to stick in the corner that you could take to fancy dinners? Come on, man. So, there's got to be, there's no truth to this. On top of the fact that they also said, what else did they say that made me almost giggle a little bit? Oh, right. They were talking about the highly successful gaming system Xbox. This is the same company that before this deal even came to light, they made fun of the fact, literally made fun of the fact right in their marketing that Xbox was in last place. But now as soon as they went to go buy it, it's Microsoft's, quote, highly successful gaming system, leading multi-game subscription service, which, of course, they made fun of. They said these things weren't going to work. They don't work in their minds. They've said it over and over and over again, but now they're the leading subscription service, right?
It's crazy. It's
they're literally just
crazy.
It's absolutely insane. So the thing is, this all boils down to one thing, okay? It all boils down to the fact that they want the brand recognition to remain with Sony.
Yes.
They want their name in the forefront with everything. With the Call of Duty situation, which they had a very nice, comfortable lead in the PS4 era, it was not carried by Spider-Man and God of War, no matter what anybody tells you. Okay? 20 million copies of this and 15 million copies of that ain't squat. It's the 100 million people playing Fortnite and Call of Duty on the PS4
100%.
is what won them the generation, not anything else. And Sony are not stupid. They know that that's the reason why they won the generation, because they won the mind share. And something we've mentioned 1,000 times on 1,000 different shows for all these years that we're talking about this now. It all comes down to the brand recognition. And what it comes down to is that they like the fact that they've celebrated the fact that for the last 8 years, Call of Duty has been synonymous with the PlayStation brand, exactly like how the Xbox 360 dominated, because the Call of Duty, when Call of Duty finally cracked that nut, which was Call of Duty 4, okay, Modern Warfare, and then Xbox 360 became the shooter box that everybody needed to own, right? That's how that worked out. So they've been enjoying the fact that they've been on top because PlayStation has been synonymous with Call of Duty for that time period. Since the
360, since the end of the 360 era. Yep.
Exactly. They don't want the name Call of Duty next to the name Xbox. They don't want the what the hell is they call it? The pro leagues. God damn it, I can't. The Major League Gaming.
The MLGs.
All those guys and all those tournaments. They don't want those tournaments where everybody's playing with an Xbox controller or with a Series X. They do not want green banners in stadiums when they have the Call of Duty competitions worldwide in Asian countries. Because if you go to some of these Asian countries, South Korea and everywhere else, they've got 80,000 people packed into stadiums watching Call of Duty World Tournaments.
Yes.
Okay? They don't want to see the green flag fly above those stadiums saying Xbox presents, you know what I mean? Blah, 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 blah. This is all what it boils down to. It's all down to the yes.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. What they also don't, besides all the great points that you're making, the big one is they do not want Xbox or Nintendo or any other company to compete in this fashion because they cannot compete in this fashion.
No, they can't. They can't keep up. They can't keep up. They would be punching way above their weight. And the thing is, they don't have the money to do it. And that's fine because Sony does a great job of doing what they got to do. They got their market. They've got the way they do things. But if you're thinking that you're going to own the mainstream forever when you've got someone who's bigger and hungrier than you are going to lose. This is like the first match of Rocky Balboa versus Clubber Lang. Mind you, and Clubber Lang beat the living crap out of him. Okay, there's a reason for that. He was bigger and he was hungrier. I know it sounds like kind of ridiculous because Microsoft's a $2 trillion corporation. However, in the gaming space, they are the underdogs. Okay, so that's the way it's been. That's the way Sony wants them under their thumb. Now, in regards to that's basically all I was going to say about all of this. It all boils down to they don't want to see the brand recognition moved to Xbox. That's what it's got to be. Now, in terms of their players, they're not going to lose a lot of players, okay? Because, listen, let's not be foolish here, okay? No one who's got a PS5, let's say only a PS5, okay? And they are Call of Duty players. They play Call of Duty and, like the Dude Bro guys who play nothing but FIFA and Call of Duty all year or Madden, whatever country you're in, or NHL if you're in Canada. One sports game and Call of Duty. No one is selling their PlayStation 5 to subscribe to Game Pass and buy an Xbox and go trade in their PS5 so they could pay $15 a month to play Call of Duty. It's not going to happen.
It's not. No, it's not going to. It may happen for some.
For some.
It is reasonable, folks.
It'll happen to I'm sorry, Boom. It'll happen to exactly. It'll happen to those transitioning over from the PlayStation 4, and then they have a choice to make, right? And then they say, "Hey, wait a minute, wait a minute. Now Xbox has given us something to think about here."
Now the other thing is too, you have to also remember, people like to play where their friends are. Okay, so that's the thing too. Like for example, I'll give you an example right here that's in this house. Okay, we've got 5 Xboxes in this house. Okay, 2 PlayStation 5s and 2 PlayStation 4s. Okay, my son will only play on his PlayStation. You know why? Because all his friends in school are on PlayStation.
Sony doesn't allow crossplay, or they try to prohibit it.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what's happening. But hey, that's not anti-competitive. That's just
right, exactly, right.
That's
and
just
the thing
Sony
is,
business practices.
It's not even the crossplay. It's also the fact they wouldn't be able to talk to each other, right, while they're playing whatever they're playing, right, Fortnite or this and that, whatever. These are only they're kids. But you know what I'm saying? So like they've got these Xboxes sitting right there. They won't even turn them on because their friends in class all are playing on their father's PS4s because these are casual gamers. Their fathers, right? I've spoken to them. They're a bunch of frauds. Anyways, the thing is that. They are what they are. And, the thing is, the kids, and my son has not turned on an Xbox at all. He's got a Series S sitting right there, practically out of the box, won't even touch it.
Hey, Matt, you know what that sounds like?
Yeah.
The network effect that Sony was crying about in their 22-page article.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And this is what they're trying to prevent. This is the reason why I'm bringing this up too. I'm bringing this up too because they don't want, it's not about us. It's not about who's in the ecosystem now. They are fighting. I know it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like a Terminator tagline, but they're fighting for the future. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm getting at. They're not fighting. They don't give a shit about us. You think they give a shit about Everborn and Hargeet and Wandering Dutch and Boom and well, no. They care about your kids and your grandkids and your nephews and your nieces and whatever, because they're the ones after we're dead, okay? They're going to be the ones who are going to be still paying for 30 years for gaming. That's who they're looking at. They're not looking at old farts like us. They're like, 10 years are going to have arthritis. They're not playing those games anyway. Yeah.
Hey, Mag, then maybe they should make some all ages content.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And monopolize the mature content. But you see what I'm saying? This is what I'm getting at. The point is, it's all about the brand recognition, what they're afraid of. They know that what they've got now is not going to really go anywhere. It's not about now. Everybody's got to stop thinking about themselves. It's not about you, me, or anybody in this chat, or anybody listens to this show later, or anybody on Twitter and Hive and everything else. It's got to do with the people who haven't started this journey yet.
Yep.
And that's what they're afraid of. What they're afraid of is next year or the year after, when little Johnny's about to get his very first console, the parents have a decision to make. And that decision is 99.9% based on money, on what they can afford and what they can have. They don't give a shit about what Johnny's friend is playing. They want to see what's the better deal out there. And then everybody else kind of conforms to that deal. How do you think that happened with the PS4? That's why all my son's friends all have PS4s, because their fraud fathers looked at it and said, oh, well, this was on sale for $199 on Black Friday, so they all bought PS4s, right? That's how it is. Yeah. The only reason why I'm calling them fraud fathers because they're listening. Two of them are listening to the show tonight. I'm just being an ass. But anyways, hi guys. I'll see you guys at school tomorrow. Anyways, the thing is that at the end of the day, this is what they're worried about. They're worried about the new people coming in. They're worried about those people who haven't picked up that first console yet. Because when you look at what's going to happen in the future, when you put the two side to side, you're going to see that the Xbox brand is so much more attractive. Okay, and so much more consumer friendly in the long run, and that's what Sony doesn't want. They want their icy grip to stay on the gamers, and it gets passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah. So one thing on the competing, they can, right? They don't have to make something like Call of Duty to compete. Like, think of something as simple as Sea of Thieves. Was that heavily invested in? No,
that was actually clowned on by Sony and their followers
and Microsoft. They didn't even think it was going to go anywhere, and it
that's true too.
Off, right? And so it's up to them to compete. The problem is their head is Jim Ryan, and he might be good in certain things, but he's not a gamer. So if they had a head that was a gamer, he would say, "Gauntlet down, cool. I'm going to compete and come up with something better." Right? Because the answer is always, "I know how to get to gamers. I'm going to figure out what they want and come up with the next game." Right? It's not about, this one game that a third party makes that makes my console tick, right? It's got to be what I can make for my consumers so they come to my platform. That's not Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan's looking at numbers. You know, he doesn't care about Diablo. Is that a big franchise? Yep. Has he said that word once? He doesn't give a shit about it. You know, he only cares about one game, the one that gives him profit, and that's Call of Duty, and that's the only game he's ever talked about. And that there's so many other games that make him money, but he just doesn't care, right? So, like, look, this whole thing, they could absolutely compete if they wanted to. They have Bungie, who made the Xbox console what it is. They could make another game. They already are. And they could make that thing a PlayStation exclusive. Nothing stops them from doing that. And then they could have a killer franchise. That's up to them, right? But they don't. They're just crying. Right? That's all this is. So could they compete 100%? They could compete, right? There's all sorts of small games that grew out of nothing and became big. It comes down to a formula of a game that people want to play. Vampire Survivors is taken off. It's a stupid little game, right?
One of my favorite games of the year. One of my
Xbox is the one that invested in that game and made it something on a console. That it wasn't PlayStation that went and did that.
No, it was Microsoft that invested in it.
It was Game Pass that made that happen.
Yep. And right now, it is leading the charge in Game of the Year conversations.
Yeah.
They, as a matter of fact, the little engine that could is dropping the first free update, which gives 2 more achievements, more weapons, and some fixes tomorrow. They just announced that today, as a matter of fact. It's bonkers. Listen, I know that Everborn Saga has been chomping at the bit here.
This is true.
To get into this conversation. Look. I just want to real quick pull up something that John put into the chat, into the private chat. That's rather important. It's a part of this document, Everborn. It says the transaction threatens the gaming ecosystem as a whole at a critical moment. It would take an irreplaceable gaming franchise, Call of Duty, out of independent hands and combine it with Microsoft's highly successful gaming system, Xbox, leading multi-game subscription services, Game Pass, dominant PC OS Windows, and leading cloud platform with Azure. The only way to preserve robust competition and protect consumers and independent developers is to assure that Activision remains independently owned. Now, I want to bring my own personal evidence into the conversation because, I'm all about evidence. So I did what worldwide brands are currently sitting at. So Sony, as of today, is number 7. PlayStation is the number 7th world recognized brand. Understand what I'm saying, folks. It's 7th in the entire planet, not a locked region. Would you kindly like to know where Xbox is? Just take a guess. Let me get some numbers here from the panel. What do you think? Chat, before I give the number out, where are they? Are they 10th?
Nowhere near it.
17th? 21st?
70th?
They are currently sitting at 56.
Okay, 56.
They were 59 last year. They gained 3 points. So
Jim
they
whispered
are
the answer in my ear.
56th in the world versus Sony's PlayStation, which is 7th. I mean, I don't need to have to say any more. By all means, go crazy, Everborn.
Right.
Talk your talk.
So there's several things going on. Let me get the reasonable part out of it before I give you all the spice. So there's the whole 10-year offer, right? We're all aware of this. And we were all sort of flabbergasted that, Sony did not choose to comment on it. But now, we know why, right? And I think Hargeet said it and a few others said it. If they agree to the 10-year deal, they're tacitly saying they approve what's going on. So they can't do that. So and we understand that, right? And their chess move that they think is that, hey, we're going to get this game anyway, right? Because Microsoft can't go and tell regulators we're offering them this much, and then the deal closes, even if we were being dicks, They can't go tell regulators we're going to give them COD and then say, no, you're a dick, you can't have it, because then they will have made Microsoft into a liar, and now maybe regulators have to look at it again. So their calculation is it's only upside if they get the deal blocked, right? So whether they have to lie, cheat, steal, beg, borrow, give somebody a hand job, they will do it because they're going to get the game anyway. Right, but if they're successful, now Microsoft doesn't have control. I tend to disagree with that, but that's what's happening, right? Because the risk to me is not worth the reward. The risk is, hey, what if regulators say, what if regulators see what they're doing, right? Because if they seem too unreasonable, and all of the regulators' opposition was based on their complaining, if you now see their complaining as bullshit, then none of the opposition holds up, right? The CMA's entire case against this, their reasoning for going to a phase 2, is based on what Sony told them, right? So if the CMA sees that Sony becomes overzealous, I don't know how happy they are trying to be used by Sony in a business negotiation, right? Once they actually see what's happening. So I think it's a gamble. And I think I think when this is all said and done, they could be doing this and they could end up with no guarantee, or at least not the 10 years. And Microsoft could say, listen, they didn't want it. We offered. Now it's exclusive, right? And so that's that part of it, right? And Microsoft, for that very reason, made the 10-year offer, right? They said, here, they're complaining about it. They think they won't have it. I'm going to offer them 10 years, and that will expose them for the frauds they are. Because we're going to offer 10 years knowing they won't take it. And then they are going to come out and say, it doesn't even matter if we have it for 10 years or 15 years or whatever. We just want the deal blocked. And now they've shown themselves for who they are. So basically, the 10-year offer was cutting the grass, and now the snakes are showing, right? So that's the strategy on both sides here, right? And now we come to this comedy hour, which is Sony's response to the CMA, and it all really plays out as an exercise in hypocrisy. But we'll focus on some other parts of it. Did you guys see how they threw EA under the bus? Where they said even EA and their Battlefield franchises, after all the trying and releasing almost every year, they're only able to do 88 million lifetime sales, and they just can't compete, nor do they have the talent or skill to compete with COD.
So what you're saying is Sony is basically burying themselves in a hole with EA, honestly. With Microsoft.
That's going to be the second question. When everyone is done speaking. No, Mag, I'm going to go to you first on it, because obviously your time frame is sometimes sketchy. That's where we're going to go, because I've said this before, and I think everyone's going to have a different opinion here, probably all agreeing, but having great opinions. Sony is really painting themselves into a corner with the entire industry. They have literally put the entire industry under a magnifying glass by the government. This is because you got to remember, people, other companies are going to want to do investments. Sony is going to want to do investments in acquisitions, and what they're doing, this crying wolf is really. I think they're burning bridges left and right. But please continue.
And that's the point that I ultimately wanted to come to. Listen, Sony, and I don't care what anybody says, and I don't care what your council affiliation is, Sony is doing what they have to do. But that doesn't mean they have to go about it in this way. And Sony is going scorched earth. And I think this public battle that they are having, that they are likely to lose, right? I know they think they smell blood in the water, but I think they're likely to lose this battle. They could inadvertently get eyeballs looking on the industry that hurts everybody, right? And they just don't care, right? So their argument is Activision, who was the reason they're being sold, is because they were going through a whole host of lawsuits that could have bankrupted the company if you look at the number of them, right?
Yes.
That you had you have all sort of sexual misconduct allegations. Somebody committed suicide. The state of California is up their ass, right? All of that's happening, which is why Microsoft was, and there's another lawsuit about that, but I think that's just a pension fund trying to get some more money from the pension, but that's neither here nor there. All of that's going on, and Sony says, we don't care about any of those employees. This deal has to get blocked because we need to stay the number one in market share.
Correct. That's
right.
Great.
That's what this is about. So we'll also say, hey, EA, you ain't shit. You know why? Because we need to stay number one in market share, right? We will say anything. We will put this out in the dirt. We will get all the media and regulators involved. And when they get involved, now people are going to say, hold on a minute, is this what's going on in the gaming industry? And they don't care. And the worst part about this is no one with a brain, with two brain cells to rub together, but actually believes. I don't care if you're a Sony, I don't care if you're Pony Master 720, right? No one with a brain cell believes that even if Microsoft got Activision and made Call of Duty exclusive, no one believes that Sony wouldn't be able to compete with that. No one that's playing God of War right now. No one that's looking forward to Spider-Man and Wolverine. No one that plays Genshin Impact. No one that likes Destiny. No one that is looking forward to Fractions and whatever else they're working on. No one believes that Sony will not be able to continue to do what they do and still be loved by millions and millions of fans. So ultimately, what we are arguing is that we're going to bring all of these eyeballs so that Sony can continue to be the market leader. And if that's what regulators are being called to help with, I'm sorry, I can't get on board. And that is as neutral as I can play this thing. And if you don't see it that way, I don't know what to tell you, right? You have lost the forest for the trees. I'm not telling you have to like Microsoft. I'm not telling you that Microsoft can even pull off owning something like Activision, because that is still a big if, and we can have that discussion for another day. But we have to call bullshit where we see it.
Absolutely.
And this is bullshit. And the last point that I want to make on this thing, because I know it's a lot of stuff to talk about, and we have to move on. The thing is, Sony has so many irons in the fire. They have 12 service-based games already working as their contingency plan. And we cannot look at them and just let them bold-faced lie to us.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Like that's not it. So isn't it good if everyone is vying to fill the void of COD? Right? Isn't it maybe a bad thing that COD comes up and eats everybody's lunch every year? Isn't it a bad thing that COD is basically formulaic? Maybe you have to do what others did and come out with something new that is better executed to fill that void. So whatever happens with COD and Microsoft, Sony is ultimately going to be just fine.
Yes.
And I don't know anyone that isn't just in their feelings about this. And the last thing, all of this these are bully tactics. I don't know if you ever, I don't know if you've ever dealt with a bully when you were growing up in school. They're usually soft. and they don't know how to take what they dish out. So as soon as you punch them in the nose and they see some blood, they start crying to the principal and they're fucking mommy. Yeah. And that's what's happening right now. Yeah. So let them get punched in the nose is what I say. They need to learn some manners. But that's my rant.
I do want to move on to the second part. I want to start first with Hargeet. Hargeet, the big question here, and everyone has painted a great picture. It appears, right, that Sony is willing to do anything and everything to get this deal blocked. Like I said, I think it's clear as day that no matter what Microsoft offers, including the kitchen sink and the passcode, to their bank account, Sony is not going to take it. They want this deal blocked because they want to ultimately be the only brand compared, shoulder to shoulder with Call of Duty. When you think of Call of Duty, if you think of anything but PlayStation, it's a problem. I get business. I'm not a boob. I understand that. But at the end of the day, they have also been in first place for 20 plus years. Nintendo, I don't know. They don't have Call of Duty, but somehow their own first party shooter in Japan and in many regions is selling for every one console. For every 5 consoles, one person owns it. It's crazy how good Splatoon is doing. A first party 720p shooter. Yep. Okay, but my question to you is, what happens next here? Like, because I mean, there are ramifications that people are not talking about, and Sony is. I really think that they are burning bridges with the entire industry as a whole. They're the only ones complaining. They've come up with straight up bone-faced lies to regulators. Everything we read tonight is just preposterous at best. What are your thoughts on what happens next?
Yeah, so look, the industry has a lot to deal with increasing costs of games. There's engagement models. Some games just don't seem to sell well. You can look at Square Enix complaining about that exact thing, and enters a new model like Game Pass, where they're like, you know what, we can front some of that money, put the game in Game Pass. Right, it gives developers an option, right? It gives and yes, Sony can do that, but that's one developer, right? One publisher, and they're like, there's potentials for competition for that, right? With Xbox coming in and saying, hey, we can put that game on PC, we can put that game on console, and put it in cloud for you, and we'll pay for part of the development or all the development. Just put it in Game Pass for a year or whatever, right? And we won't even restrict you from putting it on another platform. Go ahead and put it wherever else you want. We don't care. Right? But just put it in Game Pass. That's a very compelling argument for publishers that are looking for investment to go with, right? That's a potential avenue for them. And with this, they're basically telling everybody else that, no, we don't care. This is the only model that will work because that's what we want, right? That's one part of it to look at. Another part of this is they're telling everybody else, you ain't shit. The only company that matters is Activision. Everybody else can F off, because you don't provide enough profit for me. So I don't even care about your games. Oh, I have a Final Fantasy 69. I don't care about that. That doesn't matter to me because it's not going to make me my money. That's basically what they're saying to everybody, including their own studios, right? That the only game that matters, and that's literally what they're saying. I'm taking their words. These are Jim Ryan's words, their lawyer's words, that Call of Duty is so significant to the industry that it cannot be replaced, right? He's saying that one game, Apex Legends, ain't shit. PUBG ain't shit.
Yep.
Dota ain't shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like Warzone, at least is Call of Duty, but all these other games that exist, and there's a dozen plus games that have more players than Call of Duty. They're nothing. They're nothing. Yeah. And some of those games are on their platform, including Minecraft, which also is owned by Microsoft, which happens to be the biggest game seller of all time. Right? Fair enough. Fine. So none of that matters. On top of that, there is another party to this whole Microsoft thing. It's Activision. You think Activision went into this saying we don't want to be bought? They went into this saying we want to be bought.
Yes.
And this whole agreement they think they have with Activision, do you think Activision is going to come to the table and say, oh, yeah, Sony, you blocked our acquisition and we're going to now make a deal with you? They're going to tell them to F off.
Yes. Yeah.
We will think about putting Call of Duty on your console a year later. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. Because it's our goddamn property. right? And they're definitely creating a rift, right? Yeah. This is not a good thing for Sony. Jim is looking at money, and that's not a good answer, right? So this is going to cause a lot of problems, whether they like this or not. Now, if they did this all in the background and nobody ever heard about it, fine. But this is all public now. And they basically called every publisher, every developer out that you are nothing. And the only game I care about is Call of Duty. And they're telling the company that made it, you can't have what you want, which is to be acquired by Microsoft. I can't imagine how this goes well. But weird things happen in business, right?
Here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part, Hargeet. After everything that we know that came on in this document, Sony has the audacity to sit down with Activision and say, "Are we going to re-up?"
Yeah,
they have, and Jim's right here. Jim, I mean, Jim's gonna sit down with Bobby, and if this deal falls,
oh my god,
Jim
realizes they can't do that, right? They're barred from making any long-term. Like, wow, okay. Anyway,
hey, Bobby, how's it going, buddy? Hey, about that wasn't personal, dude. That wasn't personal. That was just business. Hey, we're still gonna,
oh my god,
we're still gonna do that exclusive re-up, right? They're gonna laugh these people right out the room.
Oh my god,
it's crazy. It's
so good.
You're saying it facetiously, but the truth of the matter is that it is amazing to think that this is what potentially is thinking. You're trying to block the biggest deal. You're literally, and again, that's the thing that also I do want to get into. I always talk about the human element in gaming, and people sometimes get upset with that because you forget that actually human beings make games. I don't know that they matter, that they should have a voice, that maybe they should have a union, maybe they shouldn't have a Cosby room 3 floors up where they potentially rape women. I don't know. Maybe it's okay to work for the devil. And Bobby Kotick. Oh, that's okay too, because you know what? I want my Call of Duty. Let me tell you something, folks. This has so much more to do than stupid Call of Duty and profits. We're talking about real people here. People effing matter. Okay? And if you don't think that they do, go slap yourself in the face, because people matter. And what is going to come after this deal is officially signed is unions. Unions in gaming for the first time in the history of gaming as we know it. Bobby Kotick is no longer going to be running that company into the ground. They're going to have people in place that are going to protect people's rights. Okay? Yeah. These are important things. If this deal is blocked, do you know how many people are going to be laid off? Because their stock is going to tank. Thousands upon thousands of people are going to lose their jobs because of this. But as long as PlayStation keeps Call of Duty, F it, right? That is ridiculous. Again, the ramifications.
The quality of it will go down, right?
Yes.
I mean, the quality of the game will go down. The morale will go down. You don't want that. And to the point of, is Call of Duty even going to continue? Look, they're remastering games that they made, like remaking games they made in a decade ago, right?
Yes.
Because they've run out of ideas. Yeah. Right. That's just the way it is. Look, we should let those studios go and make other things. But, they're stuck on this annual Call of Duty because of Kotick. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it isn't. But that's the way that is. The other question to this, Boom, is like, what happens from an overall industry perspective? Like, Sony is bullying, and that's just obvious. They're bullying, right?
Right.
Should they be allowed to? Should the other industry members come up and say, stop it? What are you doing here? Right. Yeah. And maybe come and complain and tell them, hey, look, if you really want to see the dirt, here's what Sony did to us. Here's what happens to me, right? Yeah, as a publisher, as a developer, as an indie developer, as Nintendo, as Sega, right? Who have been totally decimated by Sony.
I want Microsoft to bring Sega to the witness stand.
Right? I mean, why not? And they could very well bring Nintendo. They're very chummy with Nintendo. Don't be, Microsoft and Nintendo have a pretty good relationship, and they're across the street from each other.
Well, they made it personal, Hargeet. They said that they don't want to be. That's an insult to them.
Yeah,
They don't want to
they
be
called
like
them
Nintendo.
a freaking fitness game. Like
No,
what?
but hold on a
Are
minute.
you serious?
Microsoft wants to Nintendo you, and Pokemon. What people are talking about? One of the worst Pokemon games ever made.
It's sold
in
10
terms of
million though.
performance. Doubles
of War.
Ragnarok in 3 days.
Yes.
You should be
The
so
Sack-
lucky.
The
But
Sackboy system.
That's
what they're going to be known as.
One other thing in terms of like the future, Hargy. Sony, one of the key arguments is that COD would come to subscription services anyway if Microsoft, because they want COD. They're saying if Microsoft is allowed to buy COD, that they should get COD by Activision. They should get COD in PlayStation Plus, right? But they won't even put God of War because their own market analysis for them tells them that it is not as profitable to put their game in the subscription service. And then in the next paragraph, you say, but Activision likely would have put COD in a subscription service.
Not one
Quality.
ABK game has come to a subscription service.
Hello. Yep.
Not one. So that statement is just crap. Kotick is all about the same thing as Jim Ryan. Dollars. I want dollars. He doesn't care about putting something into a value chain, right? The value for a consumer, you want a subscription where it's cheaper? I don't care about that's not what they do. And Sony could very well do the same thing and put their games in a subscription. They're not doing it not because it's better for the consumer. They don't care about the consumer. Jim cares about money. And he just sees that I can make more money by selling my game for $70 and then put it in the subscription 2 years later. That's the whole point for them. So please, it's a bunch of crap. Activision has never put anything in a subscription service, and that's a very clear thing. So I don't see what he's talking about. But again, he's bullying. He's lying out of his ass to try to promote anything.
Yeah.
Right?
It's almost to the point of embarrassment. It's ridiculous, Hargeet. But listen, I want to bring in Mag because obviously you may have to bounce out here. Mag,
he will.
First of all, Hargeet knocked it out of the park. I don't know how you follow it up, but my question to you quite simply is, what happens next? As an industry member, how do you speak with Sony again after this? How, if you are a first-party studio owned by SIE, i.e. Bungie, how do you take anything they say seriously when they're basically throwing their entire development community that they own under the bus for a game like Call of Duty? What do you think happens to the industry at large here?
Well, clearly Sony doesn't know how to play poker because they don't know how to put on a proper poker face because these guys are utterly ridiculous. What they're doing. If anybody remembers, it's one of my top 3 favorite movies of all time. You guys remember the movie Casino? Martin Scorsese's Casino. Near the end, when Sam Rothstein, Robert De Niro, he loses his gaming license and he decides to go completely buck wild and expose the industry for what it is and this and that in order to try to regain his status and everything else. What were they doing? They're like, what the hell's he doing out there? He's going to expose the entire game industry. What are they doing? You know, Hargeet basically said everything I was about to say anyway, but I'll just reiterate it in my own words. But basically the idea is that they are going for broke. I have never seen a company act so goddamn stupid in my entire life in order to try and salvage whatever they're trying to salvage because they're still the market leader, for Christ's sake. So the thing is, it's just, Everborn said it themselves, scorched earth, okay? They're basically going for that. They've pissed off Bungie, guaranteed, even though we haven't heard anything about that. But by what they said and what I said earlier about how they basically said that Xbox will be the one-stop shop for all the best first-person shooters in the world, and that's where Bungie's like, what about us, right? Okay, they pissed off Bungie. They pissed off EA with what they said about Battlefield. They're definitely pissing off Activision Blizzard because Activision Blizzard wants this to go through everybody from the top all the way to the bottom. These people want this to happen. They've clearly pissed off Microsoft, and in a way, they've thrown shade at Nintendo. Is there anybody else you'd like to upset in one week?
Yes.
Yeah. Or insult in 1 week? Are you out of your mind? Let's just say, for argument's sake, that this deal fell through, okay? Let's just say. It's not going to, but let's just say it did. these are the ramifications of what would happen. Okay, their stocks would die. All right, the Activision Blizzard stocks would die. On top of that, investors are going to start walking away. Okay, because you know what? Let's face it, Activision Blizzard, yeah, okay, they haven't been doing great or whatever, especially in the stock, but they will if they start going, what's going to happen. They get in there with Microsoft, things are going to pick up, things are going to happen, things are going to look better for the future. They're going to have the financial backing that they want and what they need. And then, of course, then the ecosystem is going to continue to grow. Guess what? Sounds great for investors, doesn't it? Well, they're not going to do it now. They're going to walk away. Games are going to suffer, as Hargeet was talking about earlier. Okay, the funding will not be there.
I agree.
Because if you don't have the investors, the games are not going to be the quality that you want them, because they're going to say, well, instead of 100 million, we're going to give you 40 to do the same game, right? Because they don't have the money for it. So the games are going to suffer. And in the end, follow the chain down, folks. It's not hard to follow this. If the games suffer, who suffers next? Us. The gamers suffer, because then the games that we've known to love, to grow and love and play and everything else, they're gonna suffer, and then we are gonna suffer because the quality is gonna go down. And then what's gonna happen after that? They could practically ruin. I know this sounds insanely over exaggerated, but they have the potential to ruin this entire industry for their own selfish needs.
Yeah,
that is 100% a possibility. Okay. On top of this, someone else mentioned, I think Boom said it, talking about layoffs. Okay, they're going to start laying off employees. Do you think employees want 100%.
That? Yeah.
Look at what's happening right now. Okay, never mind Elon Musk with his 3,000 employees. Look at Meta, just dropped 11,000.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you got Microsoft dropping.
Amazon
people.
just laid off a ton of people as well. Yes.
Right, and then Amazon laid off a ton of people. You got Musk laid off 3,000 people. Whatever. Blah 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 blah. All down the line. You don't think Activision's gonna do the same thing? Do you think these staff want to go looking for a job now? No, they want to keep their jobs. And especially think about this for half a second. Okay, they want I don't care what anybody says. They want Microsoft to buy them. You know why? Two reasons. One, they've got the financial stability to have a job for life as long as you're willing to work. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's the first thing. The second thing is people want Activision Blizzard to get cleaned up. Okay. Because of all the crap that's happened before with the sexual lawsuits and this and that, whatever, and the misconducts and everything else. And you know what I'm saying? You think Microsoft's going to tolerate any of that crap? No. Okay. They're going to clean it up. They've already said it. They even said that they were completely open to the unions coming in. Right? So the unions are going to come in. They're going to clean that whole situation up. The staff are looking forward to be owned by Microsoft. Okay? Don't be fooled by anybody. They'll be like, oh, they're just a big corporation. Who the hell do you think they work for now? They're just working for a more stable one.
How about this? Glassdoor, which is an industry standard for rating companies.
I deal with them.
You do. And you know for a fact that they're legit. And people look at their work as being gospel. Microsoft happens to be in the top 10 of best companies to work for in the planet.
Right.
By the way.
And when you're exactly. Thank you, Boom. And on top of that, like I said before, it also doesn't hurt that they are so financially stable that the odds of them, folding or or anything of that nature are not going to happen. As long as you put yourself in a position, you got to understand at the same time, though, guys. Okay. Just because a company has a lot of money doesn't mean they're going to keep you on if you're sitting around doing nothing. I'm talking to you, Twitter. You know what I'm saying? So they're not going to keep you around doing nothing. You got to work for your money. But if you're willing to work, the jobs will always be there. So therefore, you got job security. The other thing is, too, you got to understand also as well, Activision, if this doesn't happen, a lot of people are actually just going to leave. There's going to be a mass exodus. I think a lot of people right now at Activision Blizzard are in a holding pattern waiting for this to happen or not happen, because then they're going to make future career decisions based on this decision. And Sony, being a bunch of assholes right now, are causing problems. And everybody's going, hey, Sony, can you guys cut this crap out for like a little bit? Because you're literally messing with like hundreds and hundreds of people, if not thousands, thousands of people's employees' futures and careers here. Because then they're going to have to go look for somewhere else to work that's more stable. And they don't want to do that, especially if they're happy there. Maybe they're happy there. Maybe they're happy developing those particular games or working in the different departments or anything like that, right? These are all things that are all dependent on this, and Sony is causing nothing but an issue and a problem for their own needs. They don't give a shit about anybody else. I mean, I know that you could say that all corporations don't care about their people, and to some extent, you're right. But it seems like Sony cares. Oh my God, they got to be on the lower end of the stick of companies that don't give a shit about their people, because they're looking out for their own needs, for their own thing, and patting their own pockets, and they're not worried about anything else. And then you get, you get a little bit corporate speaking out on the Microsoft part, saying, oh, yeah, no, we're going to take care of them and this and that. But here's the thing, just like Boom said, go to Glassdoor. They do take care of their employees as long as you do your job. What the hell do you want from this world? You know what I mean? If you want something better, go create your own corporation if you think you're so goddamn smart. So, you know what I'm saying? Don't complain about it. If you're doing the work, they're going to reward you for it. And you're going to have a very excellent career, right? So these are all the things that that I'm seeing right now. And then the last thing is, which of course Hargeet said as well, because he covered all the bases, is that you think Activision's going to do business with them from now on? Not a chance. This is literally a go for broke situation.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, what if this deal falls through? And they say, you know what? Because I've actually heard from another side of the coin. Again, I've heard from several people today, like, oh no, if the deal falls through, Activision's going to be running to PlayStation because it's the number it's the number one selling platform for Call of Duty. I said, wait, hold on a second. Are you
not a chance?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
if they tank this deal, they're gonna want to do a deal with them. They're immediately going to go to the biggest shark or fish in the pond, and that's not Sony.
Right. And you know what, Boom? And guess who's going to have $70 billion sitting in their back pocket because they weren't able to spend it?
Yes.
Right? So they could take it. Microsoft will walk in and be like, all right, the deal didn't go through. Guess what? We get all the exclusive all the exclusive maps, all the exclusive whatever, game modes. We get all the marketing rights forever, not for 5 years, 10 years, for the rest of everybody's existence on planet Earth.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're going to do that, and they're going to pay for it. And Activision's going to go, absolutely, you guys can have whatever you want. Sony, you get nothing. So I think Sony knows this. So Sony's like, well, we either burn our bridges with Activision now and we lose their contract one way, or the deal goes through and we lose the contract anyway.
Yeah.
So I think they just decided, what the hell? You might as well go kamikaze and just be like, hey, man, if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, like, it doesn't matter. The result is still the same. So they might as well just go for it and look like the damn fool, burn the bridges, whatever, because if the deal goes through, they're losing it anyway. So it makes no difference.
No, I absolutely agree. Listen, before I bring in Wandering Dutch into this, let me catch up on some super chats. Been quite a few of them. Jonas the Dad drops a $2 super chat and says, love the show, arrived late, see Hogue Law on this. I tried to get Hogue. He's going on vacation with his family. I tried to get him here tonight, and if he wasn't going away, he would have jumped on, even if we could have got him 15 minutes, but we'll get him on a future show for sure. Moneybags 97, I love that. Welcome to the program, brother. He drops a $2 super chat and says, kids and in Series S on the 144 hertz monitor are winning at MAG. Louis Conyer drops, a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Louis, and welcome to the program. He says, I really don't care because I have all the consoles, but put a product and a good ecosystem and the gamers will come. Indeed, they will. Pixelbit G, good friend of the program, drops a very generous $5 super chat, and he says this: I don't appreciate hearing Everborn use my patented no one with a brain. My lawyers will be in touch. Oh no.
Wow, Everborn, you're in trouble.
Moneybags of 97 drops.
Hey, I'm gonna hire Sony's lawyers to go get back at him. So I should be fine.
You might be fine. They'll lie for you.
They're actually in the business of delusion, so you might,
They're also in the business of collusion, but that's a thought of another podcast. Moneybags 97 drops an additional $5 super chat and says, Call of Duty multi-plat spin-off Treyarch exclusive Gun of Duty. Microsoft should. Actually, it's funny because both Treyarch and Infinity Ward are currently working on new IPs. They're working on both of them are open world first-person space shooter. So that's the rumor for both of them. Maybe they're working together. Maybe it's two separate IPs, but I know they're working on something different. Albert Hood, welcome Albert. He drops A very generous $5 super chat says, "Hi, Double Barrel. Did you see Sony CMA report suggesting Game Pass is at 29 million subscribers and PlayStation Plus tiers is 1/3 or half of that? It's partly redacted." Yes, they actually did put out there that Microsoft's Game Pass is at 29 million, probably over 30 by now, which is pretty crazy that they did that.
29 million for the console and Ultimate, not PC.
Yes.
So that didn't include PC numbers. So we don't know how much that is.
Right.
But it's a couple million more, right? So
yeah, I would imagine it's a couple million more. But that's the thing that's crazy is that Game Pass Ultimate versus PlayStation Plus tiers. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. Outbreak Podcast and good friend of the show. He says this after dropping a $2 super chat. "This show is on fire. Great opinions from all of the panel." Wandering Dutch, let me get your opinion on this. Obviously, everyone is talking about the burning of bridges that is Sony's currently doing. They are literally painting themselves into a corner. I'm shocked by their behavior. No, Sony is a bad actor. We know that for an absolute fact on how they do their business. And I'm not going to reiterate everything that they do, but if you're a Sony fan and you defend this, then you are exactly the part of the problem. You can't defend $10 upgrade fees for games that you already own. You can't defend having to pay $70 for a game because it has haptic controls over the PS4 not having it. You can't have that because, well, you bought the controller. You bought the console. You shouldn't have to pay to use these things. Developers shouldn't have to pay a cross-play tax so you can play with other people on other consoles. That's been going on PC for decades. And it's a problem for Sony. So, I can just keep going on and on. They're bad actors. My question to you, like it was for everyone else, Wandering Touch, is what are the ramifications of this, of what Sony is doing to the industry? Because I think they're harming it more than they're helping it.
Yeah, I would say, to be honest, the arguments that they're putting across is the industry doesn't need it right now. Like we've mentioned before, it's going through one of them phases essentially where it's going to get a lot like the tech industry as a whole is going to get a lot more eyes on it from regulators in general as to what all companies are doing. They all have these political agendas to crack down on megacorps and tech companies from doing X, Y, and Z. What the industry doesn't need is these things happening again, and it could backfire specifically on Sony in future for their future purchases. If they should choose to make an acquisition themselves of a sizable nature, following this acquisition, regulators could give them the same treatment. Microsoft could come to the table in exactly the same thing and say, you know what, you did the same to us, so we'll do the same to you. Throw them under the bus, provide a load of information, and tell regulators that it's going to cause harm to the industry. Again, Sony are just thinking of themselves; they're not thinking of the wider industry when they're actually going through any of this, which is obscene. But at this moment in time, I don't put it past them for doing it. Again, I think Everborn mentioned it before, but he's right. In this situation, Sony are going to do this. It's only natural they're going to try and defend their position as much as they physically can. But in the long run, it's not going to do any good for the industry, put it that way. It's certainly not going to improve the industry by causing so much public outcry and eyes on the industry for the wrong reasons. We should be at this moment in time celebrating all the things that the industry is doing well, but instead we've got two mega corporations essentially battling it out for a takeover that ultimately is going to benefit the lives of developers, and industry wide isn't going to change anything else. We know the games that ultimately they're concerned about are going to remain on every platform. So. Yeah, there is no major benefit to the squabbling that's going on. It's only going to have negative effects.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. John Wolf, let's get your opinion on this, brother. How does this affect the industry? And ultimately, is Sony doing a disservice to them?
Well, Boom, here's the thing, right? And I think everybody's brought great points, and obviously we don't have a crystal ball to see into the future, or else I would play the winning lottery numbers tonight, right? So the thing is that this is the way that Sony has gone about this whole thing to keep Call of Duty from being owned by Microsoft at all cost, right? The bully tactics, the mafia mentality that they have here. Here's the thing, and I'm going to get a little salty now. It'll crack a couple of jokes here, but it's the truth, okay? I think that Sony, they have beta tested their fanboys so hard that now they're starting to buy their bullshit 100%, that they think they can even, that they think they can even pull this type of stuff off with regulators and with normal, simple-minded individuals, okay? The fact that after they have aired all of this dirty laundry and basically lied to regulators, okay, because that's what they've done. They've exaggerated and they have lied. They have the face, Boom, as I said before, to sit down with EA in the future and say, hey, all those things that we said about you,
forget about it. It's okay. It's in the past.
Oh, wait a minute. You guys took that personal? No, I didn't mean that. No, we didn't mean that. No. By the way, you know that we're the market leader, right? So if you want to sell the most games, obviously it behooves you to sign an exclusive deal with PlayStation. That's the type of BS that they are buying for themselves, and their ego, Boom, has been so inflated that they actually think that they are not going to sit down with the EAs of the world in the future, the Activisions of the world, even smaller developers, where before these developers will be excited to put their games on the PlayStation brand. They're going to walk in and most people are going to say, here come those arrogant pricks. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously they have overnight turned Microsoft and Xbox into the darling of the industry. That's what they're doing right now. Okay. So in business, yes, it's not coming from a fanboy perspective or anything like that. Business is business at the end of the day. If a company sees it's going to be more beneficial for them to sign with PlayStation, they're going to do so. But at the same time, this industry has also shown that they don't like bullies. And they don't like this type of behavior from companies, right? And from individuals especially. So they're writing a fine line here where everyone, these are the type of moves, Boom. And I said it on K Mega Show a while ago when this whole thing started and Sony responded. The way that they've gone about this is very interesting because everyone credits them for defending their position, but the playbook that they're following, this weird, entitled, childish way of going about this, I think that it doesn't matter what spectrum of gaming that you're on, whether you prefer Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PC, whatever. These are the kind of moves that rebrand you as the Cry Station. That's what I'm going to call it till the end of this generation. And while Jim is in charge, it's the Cry Station to me now. Okay, the same way that Don Metric did damage to the Xbox brand, Jim is doing it right in front of our eyes right now. Okay. And yes, you're going to have your naysayers that are going to come to me and they're going to post things on Twitter like, you're out of your damn mind, John. You don't know what you're talking about. PlayStations are selling like hotcakes. I don't see that in the numbers. I don't see that reflected in the numbers. That pay attention. Xbox is creeping up. They're right in the rearview mirror in these places where PlayStation is supposed to be leading 4-1. What's going on, right? You don't think that moves like this are affecting Sony, that the world is watching? You don't think that the world sees the value that Xbox has added to gaming? And it's one of those things that, again, just to end it here, Boom, will it affect future deals? I personally think it will. Ultimately, PlayStation is going to position themselves. They're going to puff out their chest. They're going to say we're PlayStation, and they are arrogant enough to walk into a room with Bobby Kotick if this deal falls through and ask for an exclusive extension. Now it's up to these companies to push back and say, hey, you know what? You kind of screwed us there. So now we're going to screw you guys back. And it's up to these companies to push back the same way us consumers have to push back on these companies. And that's why we come on these shows. We bitch and we moan about price increases and $10 here and $10 there. These companies need to do the same thing, because guess what? Sony is inadvertently, maybe they're hurting their bottom line. So they really need to be careful how they go about whatever's left in this process. I think that they've already spoken. Now it's time to put some band-aids on, Sony. You've already done the damage. So I would expect them to do some major house cleaning.
It ultimately it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I'll say right now, like I've said many times before, I believe the deal goes through. I don't think the FTC is getting ready to sue. I think that article from Politico was BS, clickbait. They have to prove that there's something illegal about this deal. There's nothing illegal about this deal. It's not a monopoly. And Microsoft isn't going to go from 56th to 6th in front of Sony overnight. You cannot look 3 years, 5 years. But listen, everyone, let's get your opinion on this, brother, and then we will get everyone H out of here. We have crossed over. We almost hit the magic 500 of our live viewers tonight. What are your thoughts on the damage Sony's potentially doing, not only to themselves with other publishers and developers, but more so the industry? What happens next?
It's honestly, it's hard to say, because again, I think the gamble they're taking is that Microsoft has painted themselves as offering them COD anyway. So, right, they're going to lose the marketing probably no matter what, because I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft loses the deal. They will now use that money to overpay for the COD contract. It might not go into Game Pass, but we know how valuable that marketing is, because Sony is basically willing to shoot themselves in the foot for it. So knowing that, the best they can hope for is to get the deal blocked. At worst, they'll get this anyway. So there's that aspect of it. And in terms of the Politico article about the FTC getting ready to sue, I think if you're the FTC, if you want to get anything from Microsoft out of this deal, you need to be ready, right? The bow has to be drawn. So Microsoft needs to believe that you will sue if you guys can't come to an agreement, or else you have no teeth in that negotiation with Microsoft. So I don't doubt that they heard what they heard, but I don't know if it necessarily means that Microsoft doesn't negotiate their way out of it. And this is the whole point why the FTC doesn't say anything. And how many times have I been telling you on the phone, Boom, when we talk? The FTC's not going to say anything unless they move to block the deal. And they haven't said anything. So I think we just have to take it as that's just another piece of information. And I know it's like a hot button item, and a lot of detractors of the deal want to run with it, but I wouldn't worry much about it. I also wouldn't call Politico, a BS site, right? I'm sure they heard what they heard. I just don't think it means that they are getting ready to sue, because even in the article, it says nothing has been filed and it's not guaranteed. So I don't think that article really gives us anything. Now, in terms of the future, and what this deal will do to the industry, I think something else that Sony has also smartly done is that they will have gotten regulators and Microsoft on the record of, hey, you can purchase these big things, right? And I think that I think Amazon, and maybe not Google because they're notoriously cheap, but Apple, there was a rumor that came out today that Apple wants to buy Disney, and that's why they brought Bob Iger back to because he has that relationship there. I don't know how much I believe that, but that would be interesting. But if regulators let this deal go through, then you can't really tell Sony if they want to borrow a bunch of money and go and buy, I don't know, Capcom, or if they really want to pull a WB Discovery, if they want to go and buy EA. Again, these are not things I think they'll do.
That they wouldn't do because obviously they own Sony Pictures. That would be a conflict of interest if they own WB. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, they let Disney buy Fox, so who knows? We live in crazy times. My point is, Sony, I think, is looking at I think Sony has a million contingency plans, but I do think they are burning bridges, and I don't.
They're
know
walking
how,
a razor's edge.
I don't know,
to be quite frank.
If you kill this deal for Activision, like, why do you think? You know, I think I think you've basically ruined that relationship. I think that even Take-Two has called Sony out multiple times.
Yep.
Strauss Zelnick just called it what it is. It's one company that doesn't like this, right? So I don't think the words against EA are going to have anybody like emotional. I think EA knows it's just business, but I think the real harm here is the relationship is that they could have regulators take a more hostile tone to what we know as the industry, because basically they are calling into question the legitimacy of exclusive content as a whole, right? That's effectively what they're doing.
Yep.
So if regulators side with them, and again, I understand, right, that Microsoft is the one who's trying to buy something here and Sony's not actually on trial.
But they are Everborn. They are.
Hold on. And that's what I'm coming to. That's what I'm coming to, right? As a result of this investigation, the CMA has now opened a case to look at Apple and Google and what they're doing in cloud gaming. That didn't come out of nowhere, right? It's because they were looking at this. So the CMA can turn around and start looking at whatever they want after this, right? So I think they run a severe risk of their actions being looked at and investigations being opened against them. I don't mean retaliatory, but now you're putting an eyeball on these things where in a world where no one else was complaining, because they were like, shut up and let us get this money. They're not looking at us, right? But because Sony feels like it might lose a couple of % market share, they're like, I'll burn it all down.
Wow.
Right?
Everborn, I'm sorry to interrupt you, brother. Your train of thought there. Can you imagine if this deal goes through and Sony gets nothing? They get no guarantee on Call of
That's
Duty.
what Everborn seems to think is going to happen anyway.
And on top of that, the CMA and these other regulators have used Sony to kind of say, hey, keep on talking. We're just writing notes here. So you do what? You do what? Can you imagine in a world where now exclusives are banned?
But this is the thing. I think I don't think that would happen. However, I think it's more likely if this deal is blocked, what does it say about future acquisitions from anyone? And what does it say, like you said, about exclusives and what you are allowed to have? Right? Because the next time someone wants to buy something, or regulators are just randomly, willy-nilly opening cases to say we need to investigate cloud gaming, what if they say we want to investigate crossplay? What if they say we want to investigate the 30% cut that these stores take? Right? Those are all things that could happen as a result of the information that regulators get here. And so I'm not saying it like, oh, somebody's going to get back at them. But if you tell regulators about this, they're not there to protect you. They're there to protect the consumer. And if they believe the bullshit you're selling them, it could harm them later. Is that's ultimately what I'm saying. And it could fundamentally change what we know about the industry. Because if an IP gets too large, then it's required for everyone. That's effectively what they're saying. Because you may say, oh no, it's because Microsoft didn't make Call of Duty. That's immaterial to the argument, right? The argument that Sony and the CMA are making, or the CMA is concerned about, and Sony's basically trying to ham it up, is, hey, it doesn't matter if game subscriptions services don't have COD today. They need to have them tomorrow, right? Yeah. Basically saying, if this thing gets so big, any new subscription service has to have it. Everybody, right? And then they're saying, it doesn't matter that Nintendo doesn't have COD. Who cares? It has to go for everybody, and it doesn't matter who owns it. So if we're saying that the biggest publisher has to stay independent and their titles have to stay multiplat, at what point do we say, you know what, Halo's really big, that has to be multiplat, right? Or God of War's really big, that has to be multiplat because nobody. Right, Spider-Man. Yeah, because no one will be able to compete without it. And look at the foreclosure that Sony has been able to do with that. So again, if you're going to open this can of worms, maybe it's nothing, but as we can see, regulators are crazy, right? So I don't know. I it's a gamble. And I know why they're doing it, and I see that I see exactly why they're doing it, but it's starting to feel weird and uncomfortable.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, I think ultimately the ramifications, Hargeet, here are well out of anyone's spectrum. I don't even know if Sony had looked that far down the road to see what they were actually doing. And I'm wondering if places like 2K, like their CEO, called Sony's Jim Ryan, like, hey, Jim, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I get it. You want Call of Duty and everything, but you are potentially really ruining a good thing we have here. Everyone's making money left, right, and center.
But boom, Jim Ryan cannot be the CEO that lost COD on their watch.
No, I get what you're saying, and I understand.
I feel like they make a change at that point, right?
Well,
like Jim, hey, come on, everybody. Jim's right here, dude. Come on.
Brian right now as we speak.
And the thing is, I mean, this has been a therapy session for Jim. I have him right here, and you guys have been really hard on Jim tonight, but he's coming around. He's coming around. Oh, actually, no, he's not coming around. Never mind.
But I do want to just leave everybody with this, right? I know, like, we kind of, we all have our sides. I have my side, which is Sega. But we all have our opinions about this thing. We do have to go into this understanding Sony has to try to protect their interests. They stand to lose billions of dollars. The question is, do they need to go this far, and do they need to go about it this way?
Yeah, they don't have a solution.
That's where
either,
I come in.
Right? Their answer is they don't want the deal. And I think one thing we have to look at is maybe not the CMA, maybe not the EU, maybe not even the FTC, but all this stuff is coming out, and there are a couple of hundred other countries out there that might say, wait a second. So wait, Sony owns my entire market and forces me to pay more and does everything they're doing here, and I shouldn't regulate them? Legislators, we're going to make some regulations right now. Sony, you have to do these things for my consumers, right? Because look, they opened this can of worms. They opened this can of worms with their own words. So this is going to bite them at some point. They're like, people are going to say, wait, you do all these things. Hold on a second. So we're going to just write some laws against you, buddy. So they have to be looking at that too. I don't know if they are, if they're just thinking in the moment, it doesn't matter. But it's like, this is a big deal.
If they can open an investigation against the effective duopoly that Apple
it's a big deal.
Cloud gaming, they can absolutely look at this market, because look at the way they're talking about Microsoft. Right? Look at the way they're talking about what Microsoft has the potential to do, which is exactly what Sony's doing today. So again, if they're looking at those things and they can open up subsequent investigations, why not?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, folks, this has been.
If they don't, we know the fight is fixed.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that becomes like our problem. We should go to our legislators and say, "Hey, what's going on?" I think,
yeah,
I agree. Why are we not getting something?
But we can't go to the CMA, right? We can.
No, but we can go to our government, right? Our government has a lot of control. We are one of the biggest markets, right? And so we can say, they're making the very, very bad decisions for consumers. I think there's something wrong, and you guys should look into it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for your primetime gaming this evening, this Thanksgiving Eve weekend, holiday weekend that's coming up. Black Friday is going to be here. People are going to be looking to spend some money. I'm looking to, spend some money like everybody else. Real quick, I got to thank Jordan James, who's become a channel member. Thank you so much for that. We also have 2 super chats that popped in here. Hey, Blinken.
Love it.
Drops a $5 super chat and says, paying $5 to hear Boom say $5 super chat. Thank you. It's very kind of you, brother. We definitely appreciate you being here, Blinken. And I'll say it again for you. Thanks for dropping a very generous $5 super chat. Definitely appreciate that. Louis Conyer drops a additional $5 super chat and says, can I get a wrench? You have spamming in your chat. Your channel can get demonetized. If you're talking about those horrible sites that come in here, listen. I try to block them every chance I get. I mean, I'm quick, but they're quicker. We also have Gamer by Choice drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, the way Sony is handling ABK makes me wonder if they're in a bad state and that they're willing to scorch earth to keep ABK Deal from completing. Kind of looks that way. I'm going to be honest with you. Everyone that has been we're talking about it all night. But listen, before we get out of here, I of course want to thank all the super chats. Mrs. BoomStick and I want to honestly and from our hearts wish that everyone has an unbelievably blessed and plentiful Thanksgiving tomorrow with your friends and family. I'm going to be the police officer that I was at one point. Please, folks, do not drink and drive. It kills more people than you know. Call a cab, have someone drop you off. It's okay to party. It's okay to have fun. Tomorrow's going to be a great day. People are going to overeat. People sometimes overdrink. Do not drink and drive. I'm begging you, please, because you've ruined more lives than you understand. It's not just you. It's the other people that you run into, and usually they're the ones that perish. I've seen it more times than not in my career. So that's my popo fact of the day. Please don't drink and drive. Let's get to the outros, and then we'll get everyone out of here. Hargeet Chani, sell your brand, brother. Talk about Game On Daily, but more importantly, talk about your own YouTube channel where you have some great points.
Yeah, so part of Game On Daily, check us out at youtube.com/GameOnDaily. And then we have a news aggregation platform, GameOnDaily.com. Sign up, see if it helps you out. And then, on my channel, I've been putting up a few little things about what I think about. I'm going to try to get more of that onto the Game On Daily channel, but we'll start working that with Gaz. Now that I'm on vacation, hopefully I can align on some time with him and get that going. So my channel, I think it's at HargeetChani1. Check it out if you want to see some of my videos, including my response to the CMA.
Which was excellent. It was a well documented letter. I thought it was fantastic, and I love how you put Sony at front and center. It was very well done. I definitely said get over there and subscribe to his channel. Check this letter out. It was fantastic. John Wolf, sell your brand, brother. Talk about where they can find you on social media, but more importantly, subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Yeah, Boom. Thank you so much for having me here tonight as a guest. Hargi, Wandering Dutch, Everborn, and Mag, he had to go, but it's been a pleasure to chop it up with all of you. Boom, Jim, I got Jim here, for Thanksgiving weekend. We're going to be playing some Modern Warfare 2 on Twitch. Boom is going to link my Twitter down below. Please click on it. And if you like spicy takes, sometimes once in a blue moon, I get a little spicy. Sometimes I like to keep it respectable for the most part. But when stuff like this comes out, like what Sony did today, it takes me off the deep end because it's BS, dude. And you got to call it for what it is, right? So thank you so much again, Boom. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope everyone spends a great Thanksgiving with their family, safe and sound, and their friends. And I'll see you next time here, probably on Boom Show, or I'll pop up on another podcast.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much for being here. Wandering Dutch, sell your brand, brother. You guys had an amazing podcast today. Talk about the midweek mix-up. And you know what? A lot of the other live shows that you're doing that maybe some folks don't know you're doing, because unfortunately, we're not being helped out by the big guy in YouTube. So somehow or another, we've been put on the pay no mind list. And it's frustrating, but you know what? We want to get people to flock to your channel, help it grow, talk about it. And where could people reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, thanks, Boom. Yeah, it's the midweek. Put my teeth back in. It's late. It's late yet. It's 2 a.m.
Wow.
The midweek mix up every Wednesday, of course, from 7 p.m. UK. That's 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. But yes, every Wednesday, that is the main show. Every Tuesday, we also have a Sea of Tuesdays playcast where we get Sea of Thieves community guests on and creators and developers, etc., to talk about the game whilst playing the game with ourselves. Every second Sunday, we also have the weekend edition, which covers kind of pop culture within gaming, as well as kind of wrapping up smaller news articles from the gaming space. And every now and again, you will see some gameplay streams. So at the moment, of course, going through God of War Ragnarok, about halfway through at the moment. Looking forward to completing that as well. So, yes, you can find me everywhere at Wandering Dutch. So thanks again, and thanks everyone for joining us.
No problem, brother. Thank you for being here. And last but no way least, Everborn Saga. Sell your brand, brother. Talk about the Everborn Saga, where they can buy it on potentially Amazon and everbornsaga.com. But more importantly, where can people reach out to you and strike up a conversation on social media?
Well, now you can find me on
Hive.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently that's a thing. I'm trying to double post there. But what I want to do with the Hive account, because there's, weirdly a bunch of people who pretend that they're going to leave Twitter, even though they're not on Hive. I want to see if I can use that to kind of focus more on the comic book and the art stuff and the game dev stuff. So we'll see if I can use that account for anything. But I did want to grab Everborn Saga over there because, everybody's just grabbing up names and people are weird. But Everborn Saga everywhere else. And if you want to get the comics that we are working on, everbornsaga.com and Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, all that jazz is also Everborn Saga. So check us out. We've got a bunch of comics that you can check out. We've got 3 books we're working on for next year. We're working on the game right now. So you can get in now, ground floor. If you're in the US, go to everbornsaga.com. If you are in anywhere but the US, go to Amazon and it'll work with your Prime subscription. And that's that. Everborn Saga. Check us out.
Thank you, brother. Real quick, again, before we get on out of here, before I, say what I always say at the end of every show, I do want to let people know that we are doing a very special Breakfast with Boom holiday special this Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And folks, we're going to be asking the question. It's a fun episode. It's a light-hearted episode. What are we thankful for in gaming? And what, how gaming has changed our lives. Now, so far, folks, the guest list includes Web Dave, Fuzzy Belvedere, Dreadpool, John Wolf, Fonz Gaming, King David, Lord Cognito, Mr. Badbit, Pong Soul, Steel Rain, and Fun Speculation, with the guest list expected to grow. So if you want to swing by, it's going to be a nice chill 2-hour show. We're going to be hanging out with all the guys and gals if they want to join. And we're just going to be asking the simple question, what are we thankful in gaming? Telling some of our personal gaming stories live on the air of stuff that you may or may not know. And like I said, the guest list is growing. That's Friday morning Eastern Standard Time for the new episode, the holiday edition episode of of Breakfast with Boom. And of course, folks, I'm going to close out the show with something that's important to me. Hopefully one day, folks, it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught me with kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care. Have a great Thanksgiving. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.